In between the lines here where nothing is out of bounds, as adversity is an opportunity to adjust and overcome. Myself, Sevon Williams, our co-host, my partner, Joe Ham. Joe, we witnessed the first of, well, I can't say the first of many, but we definitely did not have this on our parlay at the beginning of the season. Indiana Hoosiers are national champions, 16 and 0. Share with us what's your thoughts.
Amazing, unpredictable, finishing the job from the worst program in the history. I'm not talking about the last 10 years, 15 years, Vaughn, in the history of college football. This is not somebody that won in the 1960s or won in the 1970s or before you and I were born. They never won. They were never relevant. 1967, I think they shared or maybe had a part of the Big Ten title. But what Curt Cignatti and his group and his team and his coaching staff did last year by tasting, getting a little taste of the college football playoffs, and then to finish it off this season, amazing, 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 and the steadiness of it. And to hear 16 and 0 reminds me of a NFL type record. Remind me of an NFL team that had to week in and week in and week out against a class schedule, week in and week out against your peers, maybe going out and party on a college campus, everybody patting you on your back and telling you how good you are, and just the wherewithal and the steadiness of it, and the ability to compartmentalize and ignore the distractions. There's nothing but praise to the Indiana Hoosiers. And why I have to do that, Vaughn, is because I wasn't all the way sold that Indiana could do it. A team like Indiana in football will do it until they did it. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking it's still going to be a good story if Indiana makes it and didn't, finish the drill. But they finished the drill, and I think they are hungry for more. And I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think they're going anywhere for one single reason: Curt Cignatti.
Well, as you can see right here, and shout out to the guy on TikTok that came up with this. Michael Irvin been putting BTA to all the teams in the playoffs, but now Cignetti and the Hoosiers is national champions, and rightfully so. You stated, nobody picked them. Nobody felt like they was believers. I wasn't thinking that they was gonna be a step over, but I certainly didn't think that they would win the Big Ten championship. Once they did that, I already knew that they was real contenders, being number one. But it's one thing to get there, and it's another thing to close the deal. And not many teams can say they gonna win 16 and 0. I think they might be the first one.
The first one.
The first one to ever say they gonna win 16 and 0. And if you look at it, people will say, "Oh, well, they was in the Big Ten. They didn't." When they played the SEC schools, waxed them. When they if they play Oregon again, waxed them. Then Miami, hard fought game, but at the end of the day, Cignetti and them boys did what they were supposed to do, which is provide BTA. And the final score was, I believe it was 27-21. Joe, I've always said I don't trust Carson Beck. We discussed that. We was texting back and forth. I was saying that Ole Miss game. Don't trust Carson Beck. Don't trust Carson Beck. He had a chance to win it. But unfortunately, I still feel like the U is back. But
Right.
they just not champions this year.
Well, if you say the U is back, it's a little bit different, Vaughn. It's a little bit different from saying the U is back when you're talking about in terms of speaking of Indiana. Because when we say the U is back, they're going to have to complete and finish the drill. Because the U, they are five-time champions. So for them to be back, they have to win it for them to be back. There are no, in my opinion, moral victories for the U. Now, they can say they're climbing back, and where were they 2 or 3 years ago? And I understand that they are on their way back to where they used to be. But when you look at their sideline and you look at the Michael Irvin of the world, the Ed Reed and the Ray Lewises, those guys are champions. When they think about getting the U back, you're not going to just get to a national championship game, come up short, and have a good fight, a really good season, and say they're back. I think those guys would say they're on their way. But Indiana, they're not back from anywhere. They're starting. They're starting anew. They're starting brand new. And when somebody said, and you just alluded to it probably 2 or 3 minutes ago, Vaughn, when you say, well, the SEC schedule, and somebody might say that, they can miss me with that. You know why? Because the last 3 champions came from the Big Ten. So you can say SEC all you want, and the entirety of the conference, whether it's deeper in terms of the SEC or they have more schools made it in, I do not care. They did not have a team in the finals. They did not have a team actually playing for it this year, and this is the second straight year that they did not have a team playing for the national championship in the championship game. So with that being said, Vaughn, the Big Ten rules right now, the Big Ten rules, and that's three different national champions coming up the Big Ten. So SEC's got to be quiet. If you're talking on something that happened in the past or the last 4 or 5 years, and we don't think that far back. And dare I say now, Vaughn, what is happening? What is happening with Indiana, and what is happening with Curt Cignatti as far as ranking? I thought about this today. Dare we say that Curt Cignatti is up there with the Dabo Swinney's of coaching, up there with the Ryan Day of coaching, up there with the Coach Kirby Smart of coaching? Because I know Ryan Day has 1 national championship. Dabo Swinney has 2 in the modern era, last 10 years. Kirby Smart has 2 in the last 10 years. But when I look at the job that Cignatti has done when he came over, or when he signed or became the head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, this is a magnificent coaching job. Your boys, and I'm not knocking Ohio State at all, but in my opinion, last year, and it's within the rules, they bought a national championship with the talent, and that's cool. There's nothing. And Ryan Day coached his butt off, nothing negative. And this year, it was done a little bit different. I'm not saying that Cignatti didn't pay his players; he sure did. Those guys were well compensated, but nobody is saying that they bought a roster. What he did, he meshed a lot of talent. He meshed a lot of egos. He had a fit to fit his system and players he went out and got, and they coached him up. They coached him up, and now we are talking about college football, Vaughn, and we have to say managing a roster. Now we have to say paying the right players. Now we have to say, do you have enough money to pay this position or that position? The landscape of college football has changed, and I don't know if we'll ever see a dynasty like the old Oklahoma dynasty or the old Alabama of the 60s and the 70s, or even the Nick Saban Alabama dynasties that's going to win 3 championships in 5 years or 2 in 3 years. Just getting in the playoffs now, I think you have to give kudos to some of these coaches because it's a lot of parity.
Yeah, I got a few things to respond in regards to that. For one, I think Cignatti is the best coach in college football.
Okay, I can't argue. And so that's enough. That's enough. What is it? I think about 31, 32 games. I mean, are you? If you count Elon, I didn't, and if you count his tenure at James Madison, I did not. But if you're going to say 30-something, maybe 33 games at Indiana, is that enough for you to go ahead and say that? And I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean,
because I can't doubt you. I cannot doubt you.
2 losses in Indiana since he's been in Indiana in 2 years. This is the difference. You named Dabo, you named Ryan Day, you named other coaches.
Coach Smart.
Kirby Smart, of course, Kirby. Maybe, I'm not sure about Clemson, but all these other schools had national championships, had history, got tradition, was getting 5 stars, players. Regardless of the coach, they program most times, 80% of the time, is going to be a winning program. He came in and took over somewhere nobody wanted to be. Essentially, he did the same thing that Coach Prime and Deion Sanders was trying to do in Colorado. Nobody was looking at Colorado. Nobody was looking at Indiana. He came in and started winning immediately. And not only to make the college football playoffs, but to win the Natty in the way that he's done it without Travis Hunter, but still was able to find a way, still able to find him a quarterback that became the Heisman in Fernando Mendoza, lead a championship. But I will say this, and shout out to Marley. He kept on discussing, the average player, and this might be a model with all the things that's going on with the NCAA right now, especially college football. The average player on that Indiana team age was 23. So a lot of these guys either came from James Madison or he found guys that's been in college a few years, very mature, maybe overlooked at once, but they was hungry to win and be a part of something that was gonna last forever. So kudos to them guys for buying in, being a real team and getting it done. But they going against 17, 18-year-olds. We joke on Carson Beck being he graduated 2 years ago and playing in the national championship. So right. I think Cignatti he found a loophole, which again I don't care how he did it because Indiana ain't never done it. So if that's the case, Purdue might need to start doing this. Mississippi State might need to start doing this. Baylor better start doing this. Whoever. That is the thing. It's going to be a new, I think it's a new wave in the NCAA if they taking notes and being smart. And going into Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban talked about, he didn't just wait until the first season to just buy into Indiana. He said he had to see what Cignatti was doing. He talked to him, he understood, and you don't just throw money like Lane Kiffin is doing to college players, because guess what, you can get the highest ball. And then this even going to Ohio State, the fact that you have the most talent or you bought the most talent don't make you a champion. You still got to go out there and win the games. So it's still an accomplishment to win that championship. I don't care how much the roster is, just like saying I don't care how old the players are. They still got to go out there and win. However, I think Cignatti been saying, like, hey, if they want to make a lot of money, then this ain't the place. But if they want to come in and win and be a part of a team and do something historic, this is the place to be. And that's how he was able to accomplish it without the 5 stars athletes. And, now they national champions.
Well, I would say this, Vaughn, and you're right. There's no knocking, how you do it because nobody did anything illegal. But it's much easier to do it Ohio State's way as far as buying it because of the resources Ohio State has. LSU can buy it. Alabama, they can have more money, but LSU couldn't go that route. Everything is legal, but Indiana couldn't go that route because the resources weren't there yet. Now they'll get the resources because guys will buy into the program and what Cignatti is selling right now, but they didn't have it. So they had to go to a different route, which meant being a little bit older, being a little bit mature, like you said. And the reason why I don't get too caught up in the old age, because that's just a red shirt year, Vaughn. My birthday is March 13th, and when I arrived on campus, I was 18 years old when I went to Georgia Tech, and I got redshirted, and that's 5 years. So when I left Georgia Tech, I was 23 years old. When I stopped playing football, I was 22. But that season after this bowl game, I turned 23. So that's just maturing and being a 5th-year senior. Right, COVID is over, so you're not going to get many people playing their 6th and 7th year anymore because that COVID year or that COVID extra year is not going to be viable. But you have to give your shot out to Cignatti and how it's done. And even if you go out there and you pay money to get a good roster, 4 and 5 stars, how are they going to mesh? Are they going to be looking side-eye to the wide receiver in the deep or the offensive lineman and saying, hey, you're making a little bit more money than I'm making. I'm a little bit disgruntled. How are you going to maximize the talents of those guys to, like you said, buy into the program, buy into being an overall team? That's the difficulty of it. And this is what he has done. He's put the Duke Blue Devils in the ACC on notice. He's put Vanderbilt in the SEC on notice. He's put everybody that does not have a championship, a national championship, on notice in the tune of Why aren't you getting it done? What do you need? What are you lacking? Because you can go and get in that portal. You can go get a guy that came from Elon and Elijah Surratt, number 13. You can go and get some guys that were at James Madison that were in a Power 4 conference. You can go out and get a Fernando Mendoza, who was a two-star recruit with only one offer from California. So that is the thing to why I'm so impressed that it's coming out of nowhere. It's absolutely coming out of nowhere. And the way it was done, it's boring, Vaughn. The way that Indiana, and I'm going to say it, beat everybody this season and won this national championship is very old school, 1980s, 1970s. Beat you up, run the football, stop the run. Eat up the time of possession in which Indiana had 36 minutes and 24 seconds to 23 and 36 seconds for the Miami Hurricanes. The turnover battle, Indiana won that. The penalties, Indiana had less penalties. The rushing attempts, Indiana had more rushing attempts. So the philosophy, the game plan, the wrinkles that they put in as far as that quarterback draw they called on 4th and 5, that was something, Vaughn, they never ran at all the entire season. Coach Curt Cignatti said they put that in for this particular game, which is a national championship. That is about coaching, man. And it just gives me chills to see that Indiana made it possible, made everybody that can go in and have a program to say, we have an opportunity or a chance to win the national championship. Because until Indiana did it and finished the drill, everybody couldn't say anything was possible.
Absolute
And
eye-opener.
they didn't do anything special. They didn't do anything special. From you go back to, I guess what, the last 4 or 5 Heisman Trophy winners. When was the last time somebody was under a 3-star? Jaden Daniels, 3-star. Now I know you could go all the way back to Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield walked on, but I don't know what rating of as far as star he was when he won it. Kyler Murray won it. Kyler Murray was a 5-star. So Joe Burrow was a 4 or a 5-star when he won it. Jaden Daniels, same thing. Now you have a 2-star athlete winning the Heisman. Come on, man. This is something that now the little kids, young boys, young girls, anybody can look and see that hard work, be together as a team, it can be done. It's just a Cinderella. And can we or should we? Vaughn, I'll ask you, should we call this a Cinderella story?
Absolutely.
Because
Because
the
again,
reason why I
with the
asked
players
that,
that you just named, all of them was at major programs, whether it be Oklahoma, LSU, it's Indiana. And
Indiana's a
so
major
in the
program
group in the
now, but
group
it's not a
chat, no,
major
no,
football
in the
program.
group chat they say this is a basketball school. That's what they were saying
Yeah.
when Ohio
Yeah.
State y'all got beat by a basketball school. Then KT had to face it, and his squad got beat up by 35 against the same Indiana
Oh,
Hoosiers.
so he's an Alabama guy.
Yeah, he a big Bama
So
fan.
my point is, though, Vaughn, why I asked you about being a Cinderella, are they Cinderella, is because, and I don't agree or disagree, I don't know how I feel, I just want some input. This is a team that was there last year.
That
That's
was
why
in the
I asked
playoffs
you
last
that.
year. But then people were saying,
what I'm
oh, that
saying.
was a fluke, or they ain't
That-
beat nobody last year.
Yeah, a Cinderella is somebody showing up on the scene one year and getting it done. So that's back-to-back years that they've made themselves into a playoff team. And this year they capitalized. And not only that, Vaughn, they were a number 1 seed. So how can a Cinderella, and I'm just asking because I can't put my finger on it because it's so surprising, they were the number 1 seed.
They were
So
the number one
normally-
seed based on the last week of the season after they beat. They wasn't number one the whole year where it's like, okay,
No, but they hung around though. Yes, you're right, Vaughn. My point is that they were the number 1 seed in this entire season, at least from week 3. They were number 1, 2, or 3. And then, so they didn't come out of nowhere to be a top 5 team. And then normally if somebody had a bracket and they don't know football like you and I, they would just look at number 1 and say, hey, oh, or number 1, let's go with chalk. Let's pick the number 1 team in the nation to win it all. So we can't dismiss the fact that, for the whole entire playoffs and the majority of the season, Indiana was a top 3 football team.
Yeah. See, so when did, and you said up to Ohio State, most people didn't pay Indiana no mind. So regardless whether they was, other than the ones in Indiana, But
right.
other than
In the
that,
Big Ten, in the Big Ten.
Big Ten, maybe even like Penn State, once Penn State lost to Indiana, or most people wasn't paying them no mind. It's business as usual. We'll see them towards the colder months to see if they still in it or still see how
That's
they
right.
looking in. And
They
that's
weren't
exactly
believers.
but they made believers out of us all. But let me ask you this as we transition, talking about a little bit of the sportsmanship part of it, because as they're a winner, there's always a loser. And Carson Beck, they say he walked off without shaking hands, and he pretty much stated that he don't know anyone a handshake after losing the national championship. I owe myself the standard that I play to. So he didn't shake anybody's hands. I did see a lot of Miami players staying there congratulating the running back Fletcher. It was a little altercation that happened at the end, but even him,
threw a punch.
even him was able to stay and talk to Mendoza, and I think they prayed for one another, whatever the case may be. But what's your thoughts on Carson Beck? Obviously, that was a big play where he threw the pick at the end, but not congratulating and just walking off the field.
It's a bad look, and there's no way around it. And unfortunately or fortunately, he's going to have to answer to that when he get invited to the NFL Combine, and he stopped by the individual team's room, all 32 teams that wants to sit down and have their 15 minutes with Carson Beck and see what type of person he is. That's going to come up. I mean, what about your sportsmanship, especially with the other quarterback? Where's your congratulation of Fernando Mendoza? Where's your congratulation of the other team just making a play or making plays? Because what's going to come up is this, Vaughn. Those GMs in the next level in the NFL, those head coaches, they're going to ask you, how are you going to act when you lose when you go on a 3-game losing streak? Is it going to frustrate you to where you're going to be out of character? Is it going to frustrate you to where you're not yourself? Can you show humility in a loss? And that's a lot of things that's on Carson Beck's tape or plate. He's had some of those moments. He's had some of those moments to where you're scratching your head. Even when he had his elbow surgery, he had some of those moments to where you think it's all about him and not about the team. Remember now, this is a $4 million man. Remember, this is a guy that was handsomely paid when he was at the University of Georgia. So he's been living a really, really good, healthy financial lifestyle his entire years in college. And now all of a sudden you coming off. And I don't know this for a fact, but you asking me how he's looking to me. He's coming off of a guy that's on his high horse. He's coming off to me as a guy that's I'm better than you type deal. I don't have to do what normal people does. And that's normal. How many times have you shaken somebody's hand after a game, win or lose? Do you do this? Now, what I don't know, Vaughn, is this. This marks the Miami Hurricanes' 3rd loss of the season. In the previous 2 losses, did you do that? See, that's so that's where I'm gonna have to back up off of a little bit. If he never shakes anybody's hands after a loss, or he very seldom does that, then I'm okay with it because he's being himself. I don't like it, but I gotta just digress a little bit and say you do what you do. But if he just did this for this game and he was that upset, I don't get it. I don't get it because I tell you a little football deal of it. Carson Beck, when you have a 3-by-1 formation, 3 wide receivers to your right, 1 wide receiver to your left, and you decided to look and that got that other team, which was the Indiana Hoosiers, played cover 2. That meant that guy that you threw that ball, he was double teamed. That meant that guy that intercepted the ball, he was in a trail technique, and he didn't have to worry about anything over the top because his safety was going to be on the top. So that was a terrible read. That was a read that no matter what, all you could ask that wide receiver to do is bat that ball down because it was double coverage from the get-go. They didn't disguise it. They didn't try to trick you from the word hut or the words hut. That wasn't a good decision. So if you patting your chest and you were frustrated about yourself and the way you performed, especially that last throw, I could understand, so to speak. But sportsmanship should always be a part of your football game, or whether you win or you lose, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean Carson Beck been the same. For you to say like how handsomely paid he's been, whether it be at UGA or at Miami, I always thought Carson Beck was the same player. Like you don't want to put the ball, you don't want to have to depend on Carson Beck to win you a championship, or you just won't win it. And time again, I think he showed that he can win some games, but not the game. And if it wasn't for Malachi Tony, or if it wasn't for Franklin running that ball the way he did, that offense for Miami was horrible. I mean, it was no way else around it. Now
It's
he
almost like
did.
they took the ball out of his hand, Carson Beck. So Vaughn, we have to do this though because I totally agree with you. But we have to say that he surprised us, and he did finish the drill against Ole Miss.
Against
We
Ole
must
Miss,
give
but even
we
through
must give
Ole
him
Miss,
credit for winning that game because he did. He took
but
them
even
down.
even
They
with
needed a
Ole
touchdown,
Miss,
and he did it.
even with Ole Miss, he definitely drove down the field and did his job. I kept on saying we watching the game, and in the group chat, I'm saying like he throwing the ball 3 yards, 5 yards. Does he know how to throw the ball down the field? He's just dumping it off. He getting it in the playmakers' hands, allowing them to make plays. Which when you got Malachi Tony, Daniel, and some of them other boys on the outside, of course that's the way Miami offense plays. But it seemed like you know when the going get tough and you ain't throwing a screen pass to Malachi Tony, or you not giving it a handoff, I like the other team chances rather than Carson Beck. And it's the difference between having to go down and get a field goal, which was the case with Ole Miss, and having to go down and get a touchdown, which was the case with Indiana. Different type of pressure.
Different type of pressure. I'll give you another nugget, Vaughn, about Carson Beck, and I hate to pile on him, and I'm not piling on. It's just facts. How many games did Miami lose this year?
3.
Don't you know in all three of those games that Miami lost, that's how the game ended? The
3
game
interceptions.
ended. Yes, the games ended with 3 games that Miami lost with Carson Beck throwing an interception. So either that's a clutch genes, or you don't have it, or you do have it, or that's all I can go to. That's all I can go to because in those games he didn't play particularly well. Now he played well enough to win in the national championship. I wouldn't put that at his feet to say they lost the game because of him, but the trust, the play calling, the design was almost there to protect or to hide Carson Beck some way, somehow. And to be a fifth-year senior like he is, and you have to hide him, I don't like that at all. And going back to it, when when the NIL and transfer portal has arrived, we go back to asking you or asking us this question: how do we think about the U? What do we think about the U and their prospects of going forward and being back or making it back to the national championship game or even winning the ACC? Because what did Miami accomplish at the end of the day? They went to the national championship game and lost. They're not ACC champions.
Well,
So maybe they go
I would
ahead.
respond back and say, you're right. They didn't win the ACC, but they definitely making the playoffs, getting in the national championship. In recruits' eyes, I would think, and that's why I would say Miami is back. Not to mention that with them making the national championship, representing the ACC, they got $20 million in return. So
Yes.
that's the only way I could say, okay, maybe that Carson Beck gamble was worth it because you got the 20 million on the back end.
Oh, absolutely, it was worth it. No, no, no. I will not get carried away. I will not get carried away and say they should have not went after Carson Beck or he didn't. He wasn't a huge part of why they're there or why they made it to the national championship game. My goodness, he had a lot to do with that. But they couldn't finish the drill off in that stretch where they were hot at the end of the season. He was playing magnificent ball, making really good decisions. But what happens is the team is not Carson Beck's throwing it all over the lot. That team was built through the offensive line in the trenches and that running game with Fletcher and a dynamic playmaker in Malachi Tony. That's what that team was all about. And Carson Beck, when we need you to make a play, hopefully you can. But I think they were going to really try to upgrade from a talent-wise from Carson Beck, not necessarily physical tools, but intangibles. That is the glaring difference between Fernando Mendoza and Carson Beck to me. Both possess physical tools. Both can throw the ball really hard down the field, prototypical style. But is there something that you can't measure? The Valentine area. What kind of heart do you have? What's your toughness all about? Your ability to process information, to galvanize the truth. I looked at a couple things, Vaughn, and I want to see your response to this. When Miami was not converting in the first half on third downs and were calling some run plays, Carson Beck looked like he wanted to, use profanity on to the coaches. He was very frustrated, like, what are we calling? What are we doing? Why did we call that? And on the flip side, when I saw Fernando Mendoza get sacked and get touched and get hit, like he hadn't been getting hit on the entire playoffs yet, I saw him clapping. I saw him encouraging. Even when his guys got on the offside or false start penalties, I saw him encouraging. Even some of the times that they had miscommunication and they couldn't move the ball in the second half, all I saw is him uplifted and the team uplifting themselves and not getting down. That's a different sign of leadership. That's a different a side of a quarterback that you want to see. Are you the same even keel throughout the ups and throughout the downs? Or are you going to wear your emotions on your sleeve? So those little things is what can get you over the hump when you're talking about getting to the next level and leading men.
I want to ask you this, and it's just the difference between a team that's fully bought in and a team that's believing their talent. Miami definitely was believing their talent, but like you said, we seen it before where Carson Beck ended the game in interception and Miami lost. That wasn't the first time.
That's
But
right.
let me ask you this: in regards to Carson Beck in the playoff run, Texas A&M was inclement weather. He ain't do much. They got by. He advanced. Ohio State, he got by and advanced. The next week they played Ole Miss, and you can singly, he definitely was the one that drove down the field and made it happen. He changed the game, and they got by and advanced. Then against Indiana, he didn't do enough. So how would you grade his entire playoff performance from a quarterback perspective, being that he a 6-year senior, and the expectations was for him to lead the guys to win a championship? How would you grade Carson Beck's playoff performance?
I'm going to be biased, Vaughn. I'm not going to really keep it real like you want me to keep it real, and I should. But I can't go anywhere below a B. I can't go anywhere below a B for him because he made it to the national championship, and you can't separate the quarterback from winning. I just refuse to do that. And he won or he lost against the best team on paper and the number one ranked team in Indiana by 6 points. So with that being said, I can't go higher than the lowest B. What is the lowest B? Is it B minus or B? A B minus is the lowest B, isn't it?
Yeah, if they doing minuses, yeah, or B is
Yeah,
a B.
I'm gonna give him 80, Vaughn. I'm gonna give him 80. I have to give him 80, but no higher than the 80 because of what you said, and you said it so eloquently. You're supposed to be able to go out there and make some plays. You're supposed to be able to go out there and it should be obvious to us that you're the reason why everybody else around you are better. You should be the reason why you're elevating your teams in time that need you. Not that every game you played, including Texas A&M, Ohio State, and Ole Miss, that I can't speak for anybody else, was saying, I don't know if Carson Beck plays like he should, then they'll win. But if the old Carson Beck shows up, they're going to lose. That shouldn't be something in the back of my mind when I'm talking about a 6-year senior. And that's what happened on Monday night. I don't. Which Carson Beck showed up? The old one eventually. Yes, he made some plays in the pocket. He bought some time and made some NFL type throws, but eventually he showed up. That was ample enough time in a 2-minute drill to go down there. I know they needed 7 to score 6 points. A lot of time. And to throw that interception, Vaughn, that was not on 4th down.
Out of timeout, so he panicked. He started to try to get it all at once.
Tried to get it all at once in a bad reel, and that was not even 3rd down. So to make that play and leaving 2 more downs out there, I can only give him a B. I can only give Carson Beck a B.
And on the other end, we got Fernando Mendoza. I don't know if we talked about that. People thought it was a quarterback drawn up, but he said that it was a quarterback option. They told him if it was zone, that he could pass it. If it was man, or vice versa. If it was man, he pass it. If it's zone, he run it. He was confused, couldn't tell which one it was, so he said he was going to run it and took matters in his own hands.
Fernando Mendoza?
Yeah, on that 4th and 5.
No. He was making something up, but he said that, Mendoza said that because it was very obvious from Cignatti what happened. It was genius. What was genius about it, they said that they put that quarterback draw in during that week just for this game. They hadn't ran it all season, and they put it in because they wanted it on a certain coverage against the Miami Hurricanes. And then on that 3rd down, Miami played the coverage that they wanted to say that draw would work on. And they called that draw. They called the timeout, and they say, let's go with the draw. Let's go with that quarterback draw and block it up a little different. And what they were doing, Vaughn, they were hoping that Miami played the same coverage that they worked on, that they wanted to run that draw against, and the same coverage that they had played on 3rd down. And he said, oh, by golly, they did. They had the same look that they wanted, same coverage that they practiced it on, and they called it and nailed it. So that's called an unscouted look. Why is it called an unscouted look? Because Miami had no film at all the entire season that Curt Cignatti and Fernando Mendoza ran a design quarterback draw. Well blocked, caught them by surprise. And you know how I feel about it because it caught me by surprise because I didn't think that Fernando Mendoza was that type of runner that you call a quarterback draw with. But he's proven me wrong time and time again. Last week, when he used his legs to get a big 1st down. This week, where he showed his toughness and his ability to run over a linebacker. So, yeah, it was a play. He didn't have an option, but he finished the deal. And it's about toughness, knowing your quarterback, and it's about film study because they put that play in because they thought they could take advantage of a look that Miami was giving them.
Well, and talk about the guts to call that play and go for it on 4th and 5 because at that point it seemed like they were slowing down, not able to stop Miami. But you can kick field goal. You can kick a field goal, and the defense was playing well the whole game up until that point. But I feel like Cignatti say we came too far to get 3. We going all the way. We about to close the deal. You got the Heisman.
Yeah. You know, Vaughn, I think that's just a sign of a great coach that knows the going to rip your analytical sheet up. They're going to rip the X's and O's and what typically should happen. They're going to rip it up. He felt the momentum of the game. He was probably seeing his guys defensively on the side in their eyes. They looked a little fatigued. He was probably feeling the game waning away a little bit and saying, man, Miami is going to probably go down and score again. Miami, we hadn't been stopping them the second half or the 4th quarter at all. Field goals are not going to get it done. And then he trusted his team. Because you're not going to ask anybody, nobody athletic-wise or anybody on that football field, and I know you, Vaughn, but you're a riverboat gambler in itself as well. If you ask any player, do you guys want to go for it or kick the field goal? Those players are going to want to go for it. All day of the week and twice on Sunday. Let's finish them off. Let's put our foot on their necks, and let's go after it. And the execution was flawless. So it was gutsy. But I think it was needed because when you give that ball back to Miami, having a chance to take over or take the lead that way, because Miami went back down and scored.
Right. But they still was up. They still had the lead. Yeah.
Yeah, so they needed that because if they did not get that and then kick the field goal and Miami went down and scored, then the momentum would have really changed. So it was a back and forth game, and to see Indiana come out like that, you would think that that was it was actually the veteran team that has been there time and time again, and the veteran coach that has been there time and time again. It's just that those guys, never flinched. They never act like the moment was too big, never, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. And it was just fun to watch, brother. Fun to watch.
Absolutely. And I mean, I just want to thank college football for
Oh,
providing
my
us
God.
with, such great playoff games, whether it was last drive or even an overtime thriller. You know, I can say this college football playoffs was worth it. And I had been saying, especially once Ohio State got put out, I'm like, man, I just want to see some good games.
That's
And,
right. That's right.
and
That's right. So I'll
they,
take you to this then, Vaughn. I'll take you to this because it was such good games and it turned out pretty good. Are you cool at 12 teams or you would like to see 16?
well, that's a good
'Cause I'm
question.
cool where I'm
I,
at.
I,
I'm cool
I, I
where I'm
like the 12 teams, but I think they need to change up the rules because there's no way Tulane and James Madison should be in there over University of Texas or even the Notre Dame. And then you got Miami who backed their way in and made it all the way, so that goes to show. So I don't mind 16 teams. So then we can say, hey, if you ain't make the first 16, you ain't deserve it. Whoever, because it doesn't mean that just because you 16 or 15 that you can't win the Natty. Miami just showed you that at what was
That's
a
right.
10,
10.
So yeah, I don't mind 16 if it's because the bye weeks is not necessarily been beneficial because Indiana
No, it
was the only
hasn't.
team that won the bye. And
Yes.
out of so 1-7. So yeah, go 16, let them all play. And that way, it's no team that's super overly rested. No team that's beat up by the time they playing in the second round.
Well,
Let's get
Oregon
it
won
on.
their bye. Oregon had a bye, didn't they? No,
No,
Oregon didn't have
Texas
a
Tech had to buy. Oregon beat
Texas.
James Madison first, then beat Texas
Yeah.
Tech. So
Yeah. I would say this, Vaughn. I would say this. I don't want to have 16 teams. And what I would do is I would have Tulane and James Madison play to get in.
have some play-ins. Start add a
No,
play-in.
no, like this season right here, I would allow Notre Dame or even Texas, whatever one of those schools get in, right? And then to fill the number 12 spot, I would have Tulane play James Madison.
But so
And then
then they would have to play on a neutral site, some or at the highest seed. Whoever be the highest seed, and then that'll
right,
be
well,
what 13 games.
I just don't want. But to your point, I don't want Tulane and James Madison in. One, I'm fine, but not both of them. That's
Right.
all. Not both. So let those two guys play to see which one should be able to get in. But I know that's going to be unfair to those guys. I have one more question for you, Vaughn, and this is very interesting. What I want to hear from you: can Indiana make it to the playoffs next year, and we start to call that a dynasty?
It's a dynasty because they made the playoffs.
Next year.
I mean, what's the
Because
expectation? No,
well,
no, no, no.
the reason, well, let me preface it and let me tell you my thought right now, thought process. In 2026 and going forward, man, we're not going to see the typical dynasties anymore. We're not going to see 2 championships in 3 years or 3 and 5 years anymore. I don't think.
I don't think
What
that's
I'm
out
co-
of. I don't think that's impossible. I think it might be a bit more difficult because you got more games to play to win the
right.
championship. But also, I don't want us saying just because your team made the playoffs, it's a dynasty. Because then Ohio State gonna be a dynasty. We making the playoffs. You can almost
Well,
guarantee it.
well, again, I mean, you can be one.
But we
What
don't
I'm
want
saying
to.
is,
That's
well, it
no.
can change.
That's
All I'm
disrespecting dynasty for the
well,
older terms and teams that was dynasties.
and that is why I'm bringing that up because it is going to disrespect for the older teams, but that it's just that the older teams that doesn't have the same rules and the same parity and the same things that these teams are going through, and it's much harder because it was just the big boys back then when you were having dynasties. It was just the who's who can recruit, who have the most resources, who can do those type things. It was just that back then, Vaughn. So now all I'm saying is that if like Indiana went to the playoffs last year, won a national championship this year, And if they get beat in the in the quarterfinals or get beat early next year, and then go back to next year, that's nothing. Still nothing to be said about that because nobody right now in the form that I'm talking about, we would be considering them a dynasty.
Well, if you win 2 and 3 years, which
Yeah, but see,
Ohio
you
State
saying
has to build.
yeah, that's why I'm asking. You saying you have to win 2 championships
Yeah, or
because
I mean,
I'm
unless you're gonna count it like they do in basketball, where it say, "Hey, Final Four, you gonna be in the 3 straight Final Fours." That should be an accomplishment for some.
that's what I'm talking.
Yeah,
Well, now for some,
but
it's
we
got to
still
be.
don't call it necessarily a dynasty because you got to win the thing.
That's what, but Indiana's already done that. That's my
No, so
point.
they
They've already,
won one, but just
yeah.
saying them making the playoffs, that maybe if they go to the Natty again, then
Okay,
they
okay,
yeah, you
okay,
gotta show more success than getting to the playoffs. That don't. But let me ask you this:
okay.
so Oregon, Georgia, uh, Oregon, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio State, are those the only 2 teams that made the playoffs both this year and last year?
Yes.
Because I know Arizona State was in it the year prior.
BYU was in it.
BYU, yep.
Yeah.
Tennessee, because Ohio State walked on them. Tennessee was in
Ten-
it. Notre
Tennessee didn't make it
Dame.
this year.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking 2 years. So they wasn't making it this year, but yeah, Tennessee was in it, Notre Dame, and obviously. So yeah, so far it's been what, 4 teams that's gonna make the college football playoffs the last 2 years.
And
While
who
it's
did you
been
say? Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State,
Oregon, and three
Oregon.
three out of the 4 is Big Ten teams.
Yes. Yes. Now, in 2 champions, and that's what I'm saying. If we keep on seeing these same teams now, Georgia can't be a dynasty because they haven't won anything yet.
Right.
Oregon, no. But Ohio State, I mean, that's what I'm saying. And I understand where you're coming from because you guys have been a dynasty.
The,
But have y'all been a dynasty
the
before?
expectations is to win a championship. I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on what you look at. Because if you saying Big Ten championships, it was a year when we had about 5 Big Ten championships straight. So,
Yeah.
but
No,
you
no
know,
question.
national championships. Then, if that's the case, the only team we really saying that was a dynasty or had a dynasty was Alabama.
Well, and that's the point. Well, I would say Georgia had a dynasty.
Well, they
When
won
you
2
win,
out of 3, right? Yeah.
yes, yeah. So I mean, when you won 2 out of 3, not just getting there, when you won 2 out of 3, and the relevancy of that, I can consider that. So I don't know if it's a blueprint, but I just wanted to move the goalposts a little bit, Vaughn, because of how hard it is. I don't want to just say that you have to win a national championship
Well,
2 out of 3 or
Miami
two
had
out
a
of 5 years.
dynasty as well.
No, Miami definitely had a
Yeah,
dynasty.
so we can't. That's why I
Yeah,
said, man, I
yeah.
think with them just making a national championship, not to say oh they back to what they was, but it sheds a different light. Cause guess what? Why would the kids want to go to Clemson when they can go to Miami? The weather better. Like it's so many more benefits than Miami, and I'm by no means a hurricane, but I feel
Right.
like college football is that much better. And I expect to see Clemson and Dabo get it back right. I expect to see Florida State much more competitive. LSU can't get any worse than they already been this past year. So Michigan, they still got to figure it out up there. But I expect them to get better. And Texas will be back. Texas, I believe, will be back on the rise. But I think that college football is much better when you got Miami, when you got USC relevant. Like, let's get them boys. Because I think when they originally put together the college football playoff, they definitely didn't have Indiana in the front of their mind or think that they would even make it. They didn't have no James
No.
Madison. They thought Notre Dame. They thinking these other big programs. Like, I want to see them get back to it. But to speak on the parity that's going on, and just now it come down to coaching. Everybody got talent.
Everybody has talent. And Curt Cignatti messed it up for a lot of coaches. He really did. So now, when you're a GM or the president of an institution or the president of a program, what excuse can you possibly tell that president or that athletic director? You can't give them any excuses. Indiana Hoosier football, they are the national champions. What can you, even if you're Vanderbilt, I don't care who you are, name them. Name any team that is perennially an academic school or perennially a basketball school. You can name them. Anybody that comes with the athletic director and try to make an excuse that we don't have resources or we don't have the budget or we don't have whatever, they're going to look at you side eye. Because what resources did Indiana have? They created it. Now, I know Mark Cuban and those guys are giving money to it now, and I know the run they made in the playoffs last year, and obviously winning the national championship this year, their budget is going to grow. It's going to keep on growing because their brand, having a Heisman Trophy winner, their brand is going to be even more higher. But what excuse can you possibly, Georgia Tech, what possible excuse, Duke, North Carolina, what excuse can you give to the AD of why you can't get it done? There's none.
I think the AD gotta have common sense to understand it. Again, that's why I said Cignatti is the best coach in college.
No, he can't have that common sense.
But you can't think that who you hiring is Cignatti. That's like saying in NFL you hiring Bill Belichick. It ain't. It's rare. It's rare.
You're looking for it is. You're looking for that next guy. You're looking for that next guy because if you there now, my point is, and you're right, Vaughn. My point is that if you have a guy and you're an AD and you have a head coach of your football team now, and he's not getting it done, you're gonna pull that trigger so quick to fire him because you're looking after it. You're looking to find the next Cignatti. You're wondering why you're not getting it done, and you're gonna be quick to say, "I don't have my guy. I don't have my guy because you're not turning this program around, and this guy over there just turned it around." So I gotta get the next Cignatti.
Well, that means that seat is heating up even more for Lane Kiffin. But I want to say, think about Indiana offering that money prior to all these jobs being open and re-signing Cignatti after he just signed last year when he came. Re-signed, that was a brilliant move. I think it was like a $96 million extension or somewhere around that mark before the LSU job was open, before the Auburn job was open, Penn State. They said, hey, man, we want to make sure you good and settled right here and continue building what you building. You know,
and he might be underpaid now.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure, he for what he's done, I'm expecting them to build a Cignatti statue out there. And I'm sure a lot of the Indiana Hoosier faithful feel the exact same way. If you could describe college football 2025-2026 season in one word, what would it be?
Unpredictable.
Yeah. I would say this year was
in another word, satisfying.
Yeah, satisfying. I say electrifying. It was, down to the wire. And that was my expectation where it's like, hey, it's been so good all season. Let's not let this last game be a blowout. Indiana coming into Miami. Like, you couldn't make a better story. Miami playing in front of their home crowd, going down to the wire, only for Carson Beck to, walk them to their demise. Indiana earned it. Cignatti did his job, and I can't wait for next year because it's going to be some boys in the Big Ten wearing scarlet and gray waiting for a little payback. And even talking about down in Texas, I'm sure Steve Sarkisian, like we said, a lot of these teams is on the hot seat because you think they want to see Indiana winning the championship and the University of Texas can't get one since Matt Brown. USC ain't been able to get something since Pete Carroll. Yeah, them seats getting hotter.
Do you think the landscape has changed in the Big Ten to where would anybody possibly, I know I'm not ready to do it, and I know you're not going to do it just because of who you are and where your loyalty lies. Would anybody dare say that the Big Ten next year goes through Indiana, the Big Ten championship?
I think we actually got to go to Indiana.
No, but I'm just saying, well, it goes through that team, not necessarily, where it's home or away. Just goes through that team.
Hard to say because they not
that's hard for
returning
me
their
to say.
quarterback. They not returning their quarterback. And
But
I
to your
already
point,
told
they're returning their coach.
Yeah, they returning the coach, but I already told Gat, get ready to be third best in the Big Ten moving forward. So, Indiana definitely is here to stay. But we not worried. We welcome them. We've been waiting for a little competition. Penn State, we have teams that come around every 2-3 years that might be relevant. Michigan, Penn State, even years where Iowa was pretty decent. But
I'm just going to have to get used to that, man, to say the road this year, because I have to do it only because they're the champions. But it's hard. I was still, in my mind, say Ohio State, but the road to the Big Ten goes to the reigning Big Ten champions and national champion, Indiana Hoosiers.
Well, we had to go to Indianapolis regardless because that's where the Big Ten is held. But yeah, Indiana. But like I said, it's different because they still got to find a quarterback, which I think Cignatti will do a great job of. But it's hard to find a Mendoza. It's hard to find somebody that's unrattled and a Heisman winner. We gonna really get to see.
I forgot about his name. I forgot his name, and I'm sorry for not remembering his name. But remember, last year was a different quarterback that led them to the playoffs.
That's true as well. That's true as well.
I mean, they went out and got Mendoza for 1 year. Who's to say he's out scouting somebody now that can come in and do wonders in 1 year like Mendoza did?
Well, we seen that little Mendoza just transferred. He didn't want any part of it. He left Indiana and coming to Tech. How do you feel about that?
Up and down.
Is that good news for Tech?
Well, Vaughn, I'm waiting to see. The only thing I got for you now is that I trust Brent Key and I trust George Godsey to make that decision. But immediately, because of what you just said about Cignatti, why would Cignatti let somebody walk out of the door that he likes?
Right.
So something about, Alberto Mendoza that he didn't quite think he had the goods to maintain or do what his brother did, and he let him walk. And remember now, Alberto Mendoza was there before Fernando got there. So I wouldn't say we wanted, the leftovers or damaged goods. But if Cignatti scouted him and he's an excellent evaluator of talent, we know that, and didn't want him, why do we want him? That's just on the surface. That's just on the surface, my initial thoughts. But I'm going to trust Brent Key and the staff.
Well, we're going to close with that. Again,
all right.
Salute to the Indiana Hoosiers 2025-2026 football national champions. This is In Between the Lines. Y'all be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. We out.
Peace.